She smelled like betrayal long before I caught her. I wasn't blind, just too trusting. Julian, her old flame, was never far. They thought they could erase me. A cruel plan, a man willing to murder for my wife. But I wasn't their prey. No, I was the storm. The moment I found them, their game was over. Revenge is a sweet thing when they never see it coming. She begged for mercy. He begged for life. Now they'll understand. I don't just walk away. I burn everything down. I could have expected many things. I might have thought about having an accident in a plane. It happens to some who travel for work, searching for oil across oceans, continents, mountains, and marshes. They face many risky situations around the world. I could have worried about health problems. My dad passed away at 57. He had been a strong man until sickness took hold of him. Doctors said it might have been from chemicals he encountered while working in the oil business. Ultimately, it wasn't just the illness that took him. When he was very weak, I took him to the airfield in Jacksonville where his small plane was waiting. I helped him into the cockpit, hugged him goodbye, and he took off without permission. The next day, they found his plane wreckage in the ocean, about 10 miles off the coast. They never found him. I think he would have preferred to go this way, rather than in a hospital. I went with friends to O'Brien's, a bar on the west side, where we raised a glass in honor of my dad and his choice to leave life on his own terms. I might have expected more trouble from those who were jealous. Looking back, I wasn't always proud of how I acted as a young man. I was often impulsive, chasing after romantic interests without thinking about the outcomes. Now that I'm married, I sometimes regret the hurt I caused. But back then, I was driven by my desires and didn't think about how my actions affected others. I didn't see what life had in store for me. At 25, I met someone who changed everything. She had red hair and a delicate build. Her skin was so fair you could see the tiny veins underneath. I wouldn't have been surprised to see her in an ad, frolicking in a beautiful sunlit field. Everything about her caught my attention. She had a bright smile that was contagious, and it struck me at first sight as she walked into her father's luxurious mansion in St. Augustine early in the morning. She was with two friends who also seemed unsteady. They wore very little clothing, which showed off their youthful figures. Although some might find that charming, I preferred someone with more maturity and experience. Plus, she was the only daughter of a very well-known man. Lancaster was the founder and owner of Oil Inc., a major independent oil company and a competitor to the slightly larger Gate Petroleum Company. Gate focused on bringing in oil to support its own growing chain of gas stations and convenience stores, which were based in Jacksonville and spread throughout the Southeast. Oil Inc. found and provided oil to many buyers, but hadn't entered the retail side of selling oil. Because of this, the owners of Gate had a net worth of over $1 billion, while Oil Inc., meaning Lancaster, was valued at a modest $250 million. Even so, Lancaster was the sole heir to a large fortune, and he was very protective of it. I knew all about this because my father had worked for Lancaster for 10 years before he passed away and had become one of Lancaster's closest friends. I grew up around the oil business and had a good relationship with Lancaster. His first wife had several miscarriages before they had Deirdre, and then she sadly passed away in an accident. This made him see her as a true blessing. His second wife had a son, but it turned out that Lancaster wasn't his father. When this came to light, she and her son left, and legal papers ensured that the boy would never inherit Lancaster's wealth. Following in my father's footsteps, I began learning about oil exploration from a young age. I was 9 when I first asked him to take me on his trips. By the time I was 10, he convinced my mother to let me come along. He brought books for me to study and even a tutor when we were at home. As long as I kept my grades up, he promised my mother I could go. She was worried, but he reassured her, saying he had grown up this way and had done just fine. Then one day they went into a room, and Mom said yes. Dad was a good father and husband. While he had grown up in the tough oil fields, he thought it was fine for me to learn about social events, as long as they didn't involve anything too risky. He knew he'd have to come home to my mother, so he tried to be careful, but he couldn't watch me all the time in the field. During one trip to a small fishing village on the Mexican coast, I met a lovely girl with dark hair who caught my interest right away. I was 13 and felt older, and she was sweet and charming. We spent 2 weeks together, and I developed feelings for her, but she eventually left with a young sailor returning from a voyage, leaving me with nothing but a nice memory of our time together. But 13-year-old hearts heal quickly. I grew up tall and strong like my father, full of energy and dreams. I shared his desire for the oil that fuels the world. Even as a child, I could sense where it was hidden, which made my dad a millionaire 3 times before I turned 10. Sadly, he lost it all each time and ended up working at Oil Inc., wanting the safety of a regular paycheck. By the age of 25, I had traveled from Canada to Mexico, Indonesia, and even to fields in Africa. I was away from home more often than I was there, but I had earned my diploma and was making good money, enjoying my life on my own. That was until I met Deirdre Lancaster. The first time I saw her entering her father's grand house, I didn't think much of her. She looked confused, and her friends were loud and not so steady on their feet. One of them came up to me with a smile. "Hey, Dee Dee, you have to see this!" her friend called out as she playfully nudged me. Dee Dee started to reply, but quickly became unwell in a nearby vase. This caught the attention of everyone around, as another friend tried to stay calm on an expensive rug. They clearly couldn't handle their drinks. A team of maids and butlers rushed over to help, guiding them upstairs to be looked after. I was there for dinner with the Lancaster family to discuss business related to oil. After dinner, I thought about checking out the local nightlife and seeing where the night could lead. Just then, Lancaster came up behind me and I turned to see him. "Could I talk to you for a minute, Michael?" I was ready for some excitement, but I liked him, and he paid me well for my work. "Of course," I answered, following him into one of the mansion's quiet libraries. The wealthy often have many of everything. He settled into a comfy chair and waved me to sit across from him. "I'm sorry you had to see her like that. She's really a good girl. But she lost her mother when she was just 10. I've tried to give her the best friends and caretakers, but nothing replaces a mother. She's been getting a bit wild, and her friends are not a good influence." "No need to apologize. I haven't always made good choices either. I'm sure my dad reminded you of that often." "The difference, Michael, is that he was somewhat proud of your rebellious side. No one wants to see their child in pain." "I suppose I see the point you're making." There didn't seem to be much else to add, so I went quiet. After a moment, he spoke again. "They tell me you have some trips planned to South America in the next month or 2? I was technically working for Oil Inc., but like my father, I had a level of independence. I would take on tasks whenever my boss asked, but I also had the chance to look for opportunities on my own. I had already discovered 2 important oil fields. One was in Cuban waters, quietly being set up for a partnership between Cuba and Britain, with Oil Inc. silently helping the British. I think there might be a major oil field in the Brazilian rainforest that hasn't been explored yet. Of course, making it work will have its challenges, especially from environmental groups and other companies. But I believe the oil is there. He leaned closer in his chair. "I admire your commitment, Michael, and I respect your judgment as much as your father's, but I need to ask for a personal favor." "A favor?" "Yes. I can't ask you in a business way for what I hope you'll do. This is something personal." I opened my hands, showing that I didn't quite understand the importance of his request. "We're not the only ones who have heard about the rainforest oil field, Mr. Lancaster. Many countries have taken notice. The Chinese and Russians are aware, and the Saudis are also looking into it. Some in their royal family know their resources won't last forever. They'll need to secure oil supplies around the world to maintain their power. We're ahead right now because we've done some research, built connections in the Brazilian government, and talked to local communities. But it's just a beginning. We could lose our advantage." He placed his large, weathered hand on my knee. Even though he wore a suit now, he had once worked on oil rigs and had many scars from his earlier days. One scar reminded him of how he started his company. "I understand what you're saying, and I've heard about your efforts there. I know what I'm asking and the risks involved, but I want you to stay here in Jacksonville for a few weeks, maybe a month." "Doing what?" "My daughter is on break from the University of Florida. She finished high school early and has always been a top student. She's taking a short break from her graduate studies but plans to complete her master's in business administration this year. I think I've set up enough to keep her busy in Gainesville, but she has too much free time here." And how does that involve me? She's very smart and determined, and she tends to draw attention from those who want to take advantage of her last name. She's observant and often wins over the people I assign to her, which sometimes makes things tricky. I shook my head in disbelief. You want me to put a big oil project aside so I can look after your daughter? He nodded. Really? I believe the oil deal you're working on would be good for the company, but I have enough resources no matter what happens in Brazil. There will always be more oil fields. I only have one daughter. I tried once more. With all due respect, Mr. Lancaster, you know I think highly of you. This isn't a good plan. I'm not a professional caretaker. There are plenty of people who would be better suited for looking after your daughter. He gently patted my hand. I know, Michael, but you have qualities they lack. I'm listening. Firstly, you're almost part of the family. I pay you for your work, but you've been with the company since you were young, and I've known you for a long time. Like your father, you're loyal, and that loyalty means more than just payment. You're a good person, just like he was. I can trust you, and I do. And you've had your share of trouble. I know how many places you've been asked to leave. I know the mishaps your family had to help you out of. I've seen the tough situations you found yourself in and how your family and I have stepped in to help. I know how many conflicts you've had and the fact that you've always managed to come out all right. You're a big, strong guy who can take care of himself, and that counts for a lot. So all we've established is that you like me and I have a reputation for getting into trouble, not exactly glowing praise. True, but it helps that Deirdre has always liked you, though she'd be upset if she knew I said anything. Liked? Mr. L, honestly, I didn't really notice her before tonight. He smiled. I know. I understand you've been busy, and she was quite young. Even though she's grown up now, I know she doesn't fit your usual type. That makes me a bit more comfortable with you. But she has noticed you for a while. I've seen her looking when she thought you wouldn't see, and some of her friends have mentioned how interested she is in you. I shook my head. I'm really not sure about this now. He just smiled wider. You're not scared of conflicts or jealous partners, but a 20-year-old college student makes you hesitant. It's different. I know, but I trust you. I think you can manage it. Are you ready for this? What could I say? Instead of flying over the jungles of Brazil next Friday night, I walked into Pelicans, a new bar and disco on Jack's Beach with Deirdre, 3 of her blonde friends, and 4 guys who looked like college students. They stared at me as if I was their boring uncle. I ordered drinks and chatted a bit with her friends, which made it easy to fit in. One of the friends and I got along well, and when she asked me to join her on the dance floor, I agreed. She was a good dancer, and with confidence it felt natural to move around. But when she came too close, I felt I need to step back. If she kept flirting, I might lose focus on Deirdre, who I was supposed to keep an eye on. I made excuses to leave the dance floor, and when I came back, I saw that she had already been taken away by a young man who was a bit too close to her in the corner. I returned to Deirdre's table, where she sat surrounded by 4 guys. There were empty glasses and bottles everywhere. She looked much more tipsy than those around her. They were laughing and teasing her, and I noticed her 2 female friends had wandered off to the crowded dance area. I didn't like how things were going. I grabbed a chair and sat next to her, pushing out the guy nearest to her. He shot me a dirty look, but I glared right back. Deirdre, you look like you could use some fresh air and some coffee. How about I take you outside for a bit and we can return later? She lifted her head, blinking a bit, and responded, Who are you? Oh, tall, dark, and playing protector tonight? Thanks, but my friends will look after me. A nearby guy, who appeared younger than he seemed, smirked and said, Yeah, we're taking care of her. We'll make sure she gets home. The guys around him agreed, while one guy, who was athletic and serious, kept a close eye on me but didn't say anything. Deirdre let her head drop onto the table and didn't respond. She hadn't drunk that much, so something was clearly off. I thought about calling for help, but realized dealing with this group first would cause more trouble than I wanted. I stood up and tried to help her out of the chair, but she just slid back down. I signaled to a waiter, slipped him a tip, and leaned in to speak. This young lady is Deirdre Lancaster, the daughter of an important man. I'm her protector. If anyone here tries to take her away, please notify the management to contact the authorities and her father. I'm going outside with these gentlemen to talk. I'll be back soon. I kept my eyes on the quiet Polynesian guy. I walked ahead of the three people, chatting eagerly about their plans for when we got outside. As I moved forward, I sensed someone behind me and turned slightly, stopping the arm of a person trying to hit me. I quickly turned him over my shoulder, making sure he landed face down on a wooden crate. The sound was loud, but he didn't try to get up. He just lay there, groaning softly. The other two came closer. The first person swung wildly, missing completely and stumbling past me. The second person tried to punch me but got a quick jab in the eye instead, followed by a hit to his throat. He struggled to breathe and couldn't defend himself, ending up on the ground. "You'll regret this," the third person warned as he got back on his feet and came at me again. "That may be true, but I won't be taking any drinks from you," I replied calmly. He swung at me while being careful not to expose himself. We exchanged hits, and I found it easy to block his attempts. I knew the Polynesian might join in, so I needed to act fast. I stepped closer to create an opening, but as he engaged, he tried to take me down. I anticipated his move and pivoted, trying to turn things around. When someone has a strong grip on you, the best way to deal with it is to use their movement against them instead of trying to fight back with strength. If your opponent isn't ready or doesn't let up, there's a big chance of getting hurt. I had been in a few training matches where things got a bit tricky, so I was quick enough to react, but he caught me with one arm and tossed me over his back. I didn't hear anything break, but I did hear him shout in pain. He might have hurt his arm somehow. I looked and saw the Polynesian guy coming toward me. I focused on him, ready to move as needed. I looked at his face, especially his eyes, which often show what someone is planning better than anything else. "Are we going another round?" I asked. "You've had some training," he replied. "Some in a gym, nothing too serious. Just street fighting. You learn as you go." "I get that. I've been training in karate and judo since I was 4. My dad encouraged me and I ended up enjoying it." "I'm impressed. I haven't faced anyone like you before, but there's always a first time." He looked me up and down and said, "I can handle you, no doubt about it. But you're skilled and unpredictable enough that you might accidentally hurt me, or I could go too far. This was meant to be a fun night out, not a fight." I took a defensive stance. "Your idea of fun is very different from mine. Hurting someone who can't fight back is not enjoyable. I don't need to hurt anyone to have a good time. It's too bad if you believe otherwise." I looked over at the distress on his friends' faces. No matter what happens here, the authorities will be involved. I've informed others about the situation. If anything serious comes from this, they will come looking for answers. If her family finds out what you've done, there will be trouble that goes beyond just the law. He knelt next to his injured friend. "Bobby, hang in there. Just breathe and try to relax." In a moment, something happened that made Bobby call out in pain, then go quiet. The Polynesian supported Bobby's head and gently laid him down. After a moment, Bobby looked up and asked weakly, "What just happened? That actually helped." "I just made it a little easier for you. We need to get you all to a hospital. The closest one is Beaches." Bobby glanced at me, determination in his eyes. "Get him, Mo." Mo looked at me intently before turning back to his friend. "I think help will be here soon, and we don't want to get caught up in anything serious. Plus, her father is very powerful. I don't want to get involved with him." "Are you afraid of him, Mo? I've never seen you back down." "I'm not scared. But you have an injured arm that can heal. If things had gone worse, you could have lost it altogether. All your plans would be ruined. Is it worth losing everything for a bad decision? I'm not risking my future for this." Mo turned to me. "I appreciate what you did for Bobby. Just walk away from this, and we'll be fine." I struggled to understand his words. "Walk away? You were trying to hurt someone who has been good to me. You really think I can ignore that? No way. If this is to be settled, you'll have to face me." He shook his head. "You don't understand. We weren't doing anything wrong. Ask the staff. She'll tell you it's all part of her act. She knows what she's doing." I tried to wrap my head around what he was saying. It sounded so unexpected. "We're not the bad guys here. It's all agreed upon, and if you push this, the truth will come out. Bobby has a father who has supported both Republican and Democrat governors for years. He won't let Bobby take the blame for this, and he's powerful enough to create serious problems for her family. Do you still want the police involved, or would you rather handle this on your own? You could help her recover and figure out a story her father would accept. If he was lying, it would be easy to find out, and I could always track them down later. But it was better to get her away from the situation and the police. Take your friends and leave. I won't say anything this time unless I find out you're not being honest. You seem smart enough to know that these situations usually don't end well, no matter how much power Bobby's father or anyone else has. Even if this is all just a game, one mistake can make things go badly. You don't need to be involved in this. He bent down and helped Bobby stand up. Take care of her and I'll handle my friends. I walked back into Pelicans and found Deirdre at a table in the back, with her head resting on the table. A couple of waiters came over. One asked, "Police?" "No, we'll sort this out ourselves." I shook her gently, but she only swayed and murmured. I wasn't sure if she was playing around or if she had overdone it. I gave a waiter my parking slip and lifted her onto my shoulder. My main worry was whether she would feel unwell on the way. Luckily, she didn't, and I got her to my 2001 Jeep Cherokee Sport. The parking attendant opened the passenger door for me, and I placed her inside. Then I looked for a motel on Atlantic Boulevard, steering away from the beaches after stopping at a coffee shop for 3 large coffees and 2 Big Macs. I took her inside with the coffee and hamburgers, locked the door behind us, and sat on one of the 2 double beds next to her. Her bright red curls were spread around her on the pillow, and she was softly snoring, her chest moving up and down. Between snores, her lips moved, and I could almost hear bits of words. She wasn't usually my type, but I found myself strangely attracted to her. Her skin was fair and freckled, with delicate blue veins visible beneath. The only light was from the bedside lamp. In its soft glow, she looked almost otherworldly. I usually liked a more substantial presence, but it was hard to deny her beauty. "Deirdre, Deirdre." I gently touched her face, and she blinked. After a moment, she opened her eyes and looked at me with confusion. "Bobby?" "No, Bobby's gone. I took care of the situation." She blinked a few times. "You hurt Bobby?" "Not too badly, but yes, I had to step in." "You shouldn't have." "I'm sorry, but I can't stand by when I think someone is in danger. I didn't know there was a party going on." She tried to lift her head but fell back again. "Dizzy. That can happen when college students mess around with strong drinks. Sometimes things go well. Other times, they lead to big problems. I say again, you're making a mistake." "Maybe, but when you're doing something risky, and you know your dad has someone looking out for you, it would help to give a warning so I don't end up in a tough spot." She leaned back and took slow breaths. "You're not feeling sick, are you?" With her eyes closed, she took a deep breath. "I don't think so." I sat beside her on the bed and helped her sit up a bit. "What?" "It's easier to drink hot coffee when you're sitting up. You really need some to feel better. I don't want any. Trust me. Hot coffee can help you feel good again. Please, just try it." I picked up a cup of black coffee and brought it to her lips. She pulled back. "That's hot." "It's supposed to be. Just blow on it to cool it a bit, then take a sip." After a few tries, she got some down, but then spat it out. "Wow, that's strong. Who drinks it like that?" "I do sometimes. It helps clear your mind. Just hold your nose and try again." "I'm going to tell my dad you took me to a motel when I was in a bad place. He will be really upset." I held the coffee up again. "First, he'll want to know what really happened. It's important to be honest. And as for my job, while your dad is powerful, there are many paths for me no matter what. Think you're clever, huh?" Then she accidentally splashed coffee in my face. I didn't think before reacting, but my hand moved quickly, and I accidentally struck her lightly. She looked at me, surprised. She rubbed her lips, staring at me in disbelief. "I can't believe you did that. You shouldn't splash hot coffee on me, not even to a pretty girl." Her eyes widened for a moment. "You're quite rough, and you know how to provoke." I went to the bathroom and returned with a damp cloth and some tissues. I wiped the coffee off her lips. She had a small scratch that would heal up fine. "Aren't you going to say sorry? Are you?" "I shouldn't have splashed you. I shouldn't have hit you. I apologize for that." She reached up and wiped the coffee off my nose and cheek. It stung a little. "Are you all right? That was just a reaction. I'll be okay. Now drink the coffee and try not to spill it on me again." If you can hold that down, maybe a hamburger would help settle your stomach. I don't know if I can. I want you to try. I really should take you to a doctor. What you did was risky and could still affect you. I'll be all right. Because you've always been fine before? She didn't answer. Mo mentioned you've gone through this before. You call this partying? I'm an adult, and I can have fun however I like. Letting people take advantage of you until you're not yourself? Different strokes for different folks. I studied her face, trying to understand her choices. You really make some strange decisions, don't you? I feel bad for your family. What you think about me doesn't matter. You're not my family or my judge. Thank goodness for that. She put down her coffee and started eating one of the sandwiches. I finished my meal while she watched me. I really made an impression on you, didn't I? I could tell when you brought me here. It was just physical. It wasn't about you. You're not my type. That reaction tells another story. You're just a pretty girl with a big personality. Don't get carried away. I wouldn't get involved. Too many chances for trouble. She shook her head. You're quite a character. Were you born in a different time? I held my hands out, confused. What do you mean? How many people have you been with, Mr. McCarthy? That's none of your business. I've had my share of experiences. How many men? Still none of your business. I overheard some talks between your dad and mine about the problems you had. I know you faced tough times before your dad helped you out. You've probably been with more women than I've been with men. Have you ever been with more than one at once? She looked at me and then laughed softly. Don't even bother answering. Your face says it all. But I wonder, did you enjoy it? Did it make you feel fulfilled? Who I've been with is my own matter. She walked toward the bed, still holding her coffee. I got ready for what might happen next. You need to remember it's the 21st century. Women have freedom too, just like men. I can choose who I want to be with, and nobody can tell me otherwise. My dad doesn't have to know, but it's not out of fear. I just don't want him to see me differently. I should still tell him just to keep you safe. One day, you might find yourself in serious trouble if you keep living this way. Why not settle down with someone nice and make better choices? She stepped closer, making me uncomfortable. Looking up at me, she said, Can I see your driver's license? What? You act older than your age. You could be 50 and just look young. I placed my hands on her waist to move her back, but then hesitated. She noticed and grinned. I could try being respectable, but that's tough for me. I've heard stories about your past, too. How many relationships did your dad have to help you with? Does it really matter how many there were? Who knows? Who cares? Exactly. I've made my own choices, but we both know there's a double standard. You did what you wanted, and so did I. I didn't set the rules, but letting yourself be taken advantage of, that's risky. I'm careful. Are you? I felt the tension growing, and I knew this talk was going in a way I didn't like. I had to remind myself to stay relaxed. It didn't bother me too much. It was like being in a hotel room with someone very popular, understanding the meaning of the moment. Not that it's your concern, but yes, I get checked often, even though I always use protection. I haven't had any big problems in years, thanks to advice from my father. Ever think about all those little McCarthys who might have been around if your father hadn't been quick to make money plans? Or if you'd acted responsibly? Ever wonder what it would be like to take on that role if any part of you was ready for it? Those words seem empty coming from someone with your reputation. A small smile hinted at her lips, and it made me even more annoyed. Looks like I touched a nerve, Mr. McCarthy. Do you ever think about this at night? People often assume women worry about having kids. Doesn't that cross your mind? Not all men are so unbothered, are they? Don't worry. I won't tell your friends. No, I care. How many of those moments have you faced? Her expression changed quickly, and I couldn't quite read it. Whatever I've faced is my concern. She was right. It was her life. This talk was deeper than I usually had. I like to keep things light without going into serious subjects. I was just trying to make sure she was okay and to get her home safely. An hour later, I dropped her off. There was a parking area behind the main house near some guest cottages. Several pools were scattered around the grounds. It was close to 1 a.m., and the older guests were asleep while the younger ones were still having fun. She walked to the nearest pool, which was small but deep, with lovely designs and a few decorations at the bottom. "It's so warm outside. Let's go in, McCarthy." "Sorry, but I'm not dressed for it, and I'm ready to rest." "You sound so much older than you are." She looked at me with a challenge that might have made me want to join her if I were feeling more daring. But I wasn't. She jumped into the pool, laughing. She came up, shining under the lights, and I couldn't help but think how she wasn't really my type. "You sure?" I thought about how I couldn't just leave her alone out here. She might tell someone else, and my name would be linked with Lancaster after he had trusted me to look after his daughter. She splashed me playfully, and after a few rounds, I took off my shoes and jumped in. I decided to keep my clothes on, not wanting to draw too much attention. She swam to the far side of the pool, leaning over to tease me as water trickled down her. "Why don't you swim over and catch me? You're supposed to be the adult here while I'm just a kid." I stayed in the water, feeling the weight of my wet clothes as I watched her move around the edge. "What's wrong? Those strong arms might look impressive, but they make it hard for you to move fast, don't they? You can't catch me if you wanted to." She seemed to think I'd get out and join in the game. Instead, I remained where I was. "No sense of excitement? You like people who want to show off? Well, I guess I'll sneak away before you can catch me, call some friends, and go to a party. Then you'll have to explain to my dad why I got away." I looked into her bright eyes and wished she were a bit older. She had a spark that would soon capture someone's attention. But for now, she was just a challenge. "I'm not chasing you, Deirdre. If you want to dive back in and keep having fun, I'm here." If she wanted to run off for the night, that was her choice. I would let her father know what was happening and let him worry about her. If he wanted to fire me, that was fine. I would find another job quickly. "You're no fun, McCarthy. I'll give you another chance just to be nice." She jumped in and swirled around me, laughing until I reached out as she came close, grabbing her wrist and pulling her close. She squirmed, but I wrapped my arm around her waist, found the ladder, and pulled myself up. I started to carry her towards the main house while she kicked and complained. As I walked into the main house, I left wet footprints behind, and she protested loudly. Soon, butlers, maids, and security began to gather, and when two large men approached to help, I let her go. Many knew me, but she was the lady of the manor. She was chatting with a few of the maids when Orion Lancaster, dressed neatly and rubbing sleep from his eyes, came in. "What is happening, Michael?" "Daddy. He was rough with me and is going to say a lot of lies. Don't believe him." "Michael? Can we talk in private? Can your men keep an eye on Deirdre?" Once we were in the library, he turned to me and said, "Tell me what happened." I shared the story with him, and I could see the concern in his eyes. She might feel mature, but she was still his daughter. "Honestly, Mr. Lancaster, if she was just having fun, I wouldn't have said anything. Many kids her age do. But what worries me is that she's putting herself in unsafe situations. They're trying out things that could lead to serious problems. As I told the others involved, it's dangerous. Sometimes the results can be sad." "Are you being honest with me?" "I swear it on my father's grave." Two security men brought her into the library. She struggled to look at him, but when she did, I noticed they shared a strong presence and bravery. "I suppose he's filled your head with lies, Daddy? And you trust him without hearing my side?" "Tell me the truth." She paused, glancing down before looking at him again. "Okay. I was out having fun. I can't say I'm your innocent daughter anymore because I've changed. I enjoy friendships and the company of men." "You let these friends of yours take advantage of you when you're not at your best?" She shot me a glare. "It's not like that. It's mutual. It's just fun. No one is getting hurt. I date nice guys, students, and the sons of people running big companies." He stared at her, and I was glad I didn't have kids. No one to hurt me like that. "Do you always practice safe habits with these friends?" "Mostly." The expression on his face changed. "So you're not only making risky choices, but you're also risking your health." She didn't reply. He walked over to her and gently held her face in his hands. "You're all I have left of your mother. You will inherit a fortune and a big company when I'm gone. Are you willing to throw that away for a few fleeting fun times?" "I'm young. It didn't have to be this way. You could have let Julian stay with me. He cared for me, and I cared for him. I wouldn't be in these situations if you hadn't scared him away, if you'd let me choose my own partner." He tightened his grip on her face, and she winced a little. "The person you were with brought a lot of trouble, and I had to take action. I didn't scare him away. I simply asked him to leave, and he didn't stick around. He left because he knew there would be serious problems if he didn't. It doesn't matter. You are under my watch. Security will stay with you wherever you go, whether it's to the restroom, for leisure, or back to classes. You will be checked often." "You can't do that. I'm an adult, over 18. You can't keep me here against my will. I have rights." "I can take steps to ensure your safety for up to 60 days or longer if needed. I could find a place that helps with your well-being. You won't have any outings. Choose. You can stay here and follow my rules or face a situation that restricts your freedom." "You would do that to me?" "Only to keep you safe." Before I could react, she moved toward me in a rush. Thankfully, I was much bigger than her, so it was easy to keep her from reaching me. The two security guards stepped in to help. Once the situation was calmer, Lancaster looked at me and said, "I know she's upset now, but she will be okay. Thank you." It turned out to be an interesting Friday night anyway. I thought about going out to some places I liked, but instead, I decided to take a shower and go to bed. I had a feeling that anyone I met wouldn't be as exciting as what I had just experienced. Time passed, and it was Friday again. I had just returned from Miami after 4 days of chasing rumors about a possible oil field nearby. If it was true, it could flood Miami Beach with oil, but it seemed like just another false lead that made the oil business both amusing and frustrating. I had a brief conversation with a friendly Cuban woman who spoke 2 languages and knew what she wanted. I had only about 12 hours of sleep in the last 96 hours, and I was running on coffee. My bed looked very inviting. As I settled into my condo on the Lancaster estate, I heard a knock at the door. "Go away. I'm off the clock." The knocking continued. I had been in touch with Orion, so I didn't think it was him. I opened the door to find Deirdre with 2 security women beside her. "Yes?" I asked. "We're sorry to bother you, Mr. McCarthy, but Miss Lancaster wants to see you," the shorter blonde said. It was clear they weren't thrilled about their job. "What do you need?" "I apologize for what happened earlier. Feeling bad about it now?" "A little. Can we forget it?" "Why would I do that?" "I need a favor." "I shouldn't ask, but what is it?" "Would you like to go out for a drink at Jack's Beach? There are some fun bands playing tonight." "Do you really think I should go out and risk something happening?" "I promise I won't leave without your okay." "That means a lot. Please." She looked at the 2 women and added, "Nobody I go out with knows any music after 1995. They don't know how to have fun. It's more enjoyable to stay in and read." I glanced at the security women. "Is this okay with Mr. Lancaster?" "He said he trusts you." I could barely keep my eyes open, and my bed looked so comfortable. I don't know why I said yes, but I'm sure that was the start of big changes in my life. We drove down from St. Augustine on US 1. The closer we got to Jack's Beach, the heavier the traffic became. It took us 30 minutes to get through just 4 blocks filled with people. I finally found a parking spot after paying a guy $50 for his space by the beach. We were only 2 blocks away from a row of bars and clubs, each with different bands. I didn't hold Deirdre's hand, but she stayed close. I kept an eye on her as we walked into the first bar, which had just enough room to move around. The atmosphere was lively, filled with music and friendly talk. After having a few drinks and enjoying some live music from bands I didn't know but liked well enough, Deirdre leaned over and said, "I need to step away for a bit." She made her way through the crowd, and I watched her go into the restroom. I left some cash on the bar to pay our tab and stepped outside. I wandered around the back and walked up the alley behind the bar. I passed a few people who glanced at me, but they returned to what they were doing without any trouble. When I reached the back of the bar, a tall guy with shaggy blonde hair noticed me. He must have recognized me because he raised his hands like he was trying to be friendly. "Just go away. She's not free tonight. If you don't leave this alley, you might regret it." I stepped closer and gave him a little push. He dropped to his knees, holding his face in discomfort. I helped him up and watched him walk away. A couple of minutes later, a woman in a short skirt came out the door looking around. I approached her from behind. "Hey, Deirdre, Your friend is gone." As I spoke, I gently put handcuffs on one of her wrists and secured the other to my own. "What? McCarthy? What are you doing?" Her eyes widened at the sight of the handcuffs. "Handcuffs? Really? You wanted a night out. Now you can have it without slipping away unnoticed." "How are you doing this?" "You forget I'm older than you. I've seen things. I knew there was another way out of the alley. Were you planning to sneak off for some fun?" "No, not really. He thought we would spend the night together, but that wasn't true. I just wanted one night free to enjoy myself without feeling watched. Now I guess you're taking me home." "Why would I do that?" "Because of the handcuffs. It's pretty clear. You can choose. We can go home, or we can listen to more music and have a drink. I wouldn't mind continuing the night. It's your call." "The handcuffs stay on?" "Yes." "Okay, then." We went back inside, had some drinks, listened to different bands, and eventually she convinced me to dance. While we were dancing, she lifted her arms high enough for everyone to see the handcuffs. At first, only a few noticed, but soon cheers and laughter filled the space around us. "I want a pair of those," I heard someone say, along with other playful comments. We continued dancing, enjoying drinks and moving from one bar to another. Finally, at 4 a.m., when I was almost dozing off, I told her, "I'm ready to go. We need to leave, or you might have to carry me out." She nodded, and in half an hour, we were back at the estate. I called ahead, and 2 women from security were waiting as I drove up to my condo. I took off the handcuffs. "That was fun," Deirdre said, her hair bouncing around her face, her cheeks a little red. "I'm glad you liked it. Now please go so I can get some sleep." "Okay, but first." She leaned in and gave me a quick kiss. It felt gentle and new. Then she opened the door and went out to see the security team. I returned to my condo, hardly making the bed, and didn't change my clothes. I think I was barely awake when my head hit the pillow. But even in that short moment, I felt something was different. I wasn't sure how, but I knew it couldn't be good. I didn't see her for 2 weeks. I thought about her from time to time, but I didn't know exactly how I felt. One Saturday morning back in Jacksonville, I found myself without plans or work. I drove out to St. Augustine Beach and walked along the sand, feeling restless and unsure of what I wanted. I went back to the Lancaster estate, where I had a wonderful dinner, fall-off-the-bone ribs, roasted asparagus, and the best crab cakes ever. Lancaster always went all out when it came to food on his estate. Later, I sat on my bed, sipping a nice bourbon from the bar, thanks to Lancaster. I didn't feel like watching TV, going out, or being around people. It felt unusual, yet everyone deserves a quiet night to recharge. Then there was a knock at the door. I had a feeling I knew who it was, but I wasn't in the mood to talk. With how I was feeling, I wouldn't be good company. She stood there wearing bright shorts and a matching top, looking cheerful. She held a paper bag in one hand and a stack of DVDs in the other. "I'm afraid it's not a great night for me, Deirdre. I'm not in the mood to hang out." "That's fine. Neither am I. I just wanted to chill with some snacks and watch some movies." "I don't know. I promise to keep it simple. I'm bored, and some relaxing time could be nice." Despite my better judgment, I said, "Okay, come in." We shared snacks and watched 2 movies that wouldn't come out until next year, laughing about one that wasn't very good. I realized that when she wasn't acting up, she was actually a nice person. At some point, she ended up leaning against me, seeming comfortable beside me. I noticed she had turned a bit interested in me, so I gently took her hand and said, "Let's take it easy." She looked up at me with bright green eyes and asked, "Why?" I didn't have a good answer, so I stayed quiet. Later, she moved in closer, creating a feeling between us that I hadn't expected. I had gone through many moments like this before, but this one felt different. She talked about being careful and told me she was healthy. We sat together, and I noticed that the restlessness I'd felt all day had faded. Maybe it was the drink or the mood, but I felt it was because of her. It was hard to keep my thoughts straight, but I managed to say, "This doesn't make any sense. You're not really what I go for. Women like you don't usually attract me." "Could have fooled me," she replied with a smile, moving a bit closer. "What's going on?" I asked, feeling a bit confused. She moved closer to me, and the room felt warm, her hair softly glowing in the low light. "I probably shouldn't tell you this, but I will. I have a special connection with you. My father once told me that we come from old Irish legends and that sometimes we could have magic. She leaned in closer, her bright green eyes sparkling in the gentle light. I have a special connection with you, and you are important to me in a unique way. You will be my partner for now. The night went on, filled with feelings of closeness, leaving me calm. I woke up Sunday morning to find a warm presence beside me. When I got up to go to the bathroom, I saw she was awake and watching me when I came back. "Are you sorry you didn't go out?" she asked. "No, but I have to say, you surprised me." "How so?" "I didn't know I was spending the night with someone so interesting." She paused for a moment and then started to laugh. "Did you really believe in the magic and old stories?" "It was all pretty amazing, the way your hair looked and the spark in your eyes." She laughed again. "I guess the mood had nothing to do with it. I've heard those stories since I was young. I was just playing around with you." She got up from the bed and walked toward me. "Does that mean you think you like me?" she asked playfully. "Don't push it. I'm just surprised we ended up here." She turned back to the bed and started putting on her clothes. "Okay, but next time you'll have to come after me. I won't be the one making the first move." Later that day, I received a message from Lancaster. I had been waiting for it. I went into a sunny room that had a big swimming pool with glass walls that showed the nice view of the marshes behind the house. I had heard stories of how there used to be many oyster beds in the marsh, but they were gone long ago. I wasn't sure what to think. I felt no shame about what had happened, but she was his daughter. "Sit," he said, pointing to a chair by the pool. When I did, he looked at me quietly for a moment. "I know what happened," he said. "I just don't know what it means, if anything. That makes two of us. I don't understand either. Is it just physical, or—" I looked him in the eye. "It's definitely physical, but she's really gotten to me. I told her she's not even my type, but I've been thinking about her more than I ever thought I would. I'm not going to tell you not to see her. Honestly, I trust her with you more than others. I don't think you'll mistreat her, but be careful not to hurt her if you can. I think you should tell her that. I believe you can take care of yourself." I used to think so. 2 years later, it's early 2004. Orion passed away a year ago from a sudden stroke, and Deirdre and I have been married for 2 years. She has truly won my heart, and I can't imagine life without her. I always thought that when I married, I would probably keep a woman or two on the side because I didn't think one woman could fully satisfy me. But things have turned out differently. We don't share close moments every night I'm home, but there are hardly any weeks without that connection. I enjoy my life now, even though it's very different from what I once pictured. I have a wife, a job that means more than just work because it supports us both, and I've found a wish for children. Since we are both without our parents now, I think having 1 or 2 kids would make us a family and honor our pasts. We've been trying to start a family, and while we haven't succeeded yet, it remains a joyful effort. Recently, though, I've felt a hint of something off. I can't quite figure it out, but I think I've been away from home too much. I had decided that when I returned home, we would take a month off on a tropical island, swim in the ocean all day, enjoy cold drinks, and spend the evenings together. I was in a part of Russia I'd rather not mention when I got an urgent phone call from one of Deirdre's assistants. "Mr. McCarthy, I don't know how to tell you this. Miss Lancaster has been in an accident." "What happened? When? Is she okay?" "An auto accident. She crashed into a power pole on I-295. "When did this happen?" "The night before last." 2 days ago? Why wasn't I informed? Was she driving alone? Why?" There was silence on the other end of the line. "Why wasn't I called? Is she okay?" More silence. "What's going on? Are those hard questions to answer? Talk to me. Is she all right?" We were told not to contact you." "You were told not to contact me? Who made that choice?" "I'm afraid I did." I recognized the voice of Daniel Goldman, Deirdre's chief assistant. I had seen him many times over the past year since Orion passed. Deirdre owned the company. There was no board of directors. It was entirely hers. She didn't know the business well, but Goldman had been close to her father for 5 years before he passed away. He was in charge of daily activities. He was a strong person, but we had always gotten along. "You told them not to contact me about my wife's accident?" I asked. I'm responsible for her care as the main person in charge of the company. I chose not to tell you. Why would you keep me in the dark about her condition? I'm not going into that. I had my reasons. A doctor advised me to keep you away from her, and she has said she doesn't want to see you. That doesn't sound right. It's true, Michael. She prefers you not to return. If you stick to your current project, we'll keep your salary the same. But if you try to come back, all your support from Lancaster Oil will be cut off, and you won't be working with us anymore. It won't be easy to leave without help. I don't understand why you're doing this, Daniel. You will regret it. Don't try to return. Things could change, and you'll get the full story soon. But if you try to contact Deirdre, we will stop you. Good luck with that. In half an hour, I found out that all my company accounts were frozen. I could ask friends for help, but they might find ways to limit my options too. So I reached out to a government acquaintance who had already made some money from a possible new oil discovery and asked for help. In an hour, I boarded an unregistered private jet, flying over oceans, first the Mediterranean, then the Atlantic, heading south to Cuba. We spent a short 20 minutes on a Cuban airstrip where I switched to a helicopter, which took me to a Norwegian freighter going to Miami. A brief flight on a private plane then got me to a small airfield in North Jacksonville, where a rental car was waiting for me. It's good to have connections. I called Goldman. It was 9 a.m. "Where are you?" he asked. "Back in Jacksonville. I need to see her. I need to know what's happening." "You might not want to, Michael, trust me. Just wait a few days and I'll explain everything." "Okay, I'll meet you at the hospital." "Michael," I hung up on him. At 11 a.m., someone introducing himself as Michael McCarthy entered the hospital, heading to the third floor in search of Miss Lancaster's room. At 11:05, another person claiming to be Michael McCarthy also entered the hospital, trying to find Miss Lancaster and slipping past security from another route. At 11:10, a third Michael McCarthy appeared, leading to a lively chase involving hospital and security staff. At 11:20, a nurse brought in a patient on a gurney with an oxygen mask into Miss Lancaster's room. Lancaster security quickly gathered around the nurse, who apologized for the confusion. I sat up, took off the oxygen mask, and found myself facing the closest security officer. "If everyone stays calm, we can avoid any trouble. Please, step away from my wife, Daniel." He was by her bedside, and I could see her face, mostly covered in bandages, but her bright red hair stood out. When our eyes met, I felt her surprise and worry. "Deirdre, what's going on? Daniel told me you didn't want to see me. Please talk to me. Your condition doesn't change how I feel about you." Then I noticed the tall man beside her, holding her hand. I recognized him from a photo from years ago. He looked like a movie star. This was not who I expected to see next to my wife, and something felt very off. "Gutman, please step away from my wife." 3 security guards surrounded us, and Daniel signaled them to move closer. "Don't do anything foolish, Michael. You could regret this. Don't make a bad choice for yourself." "Okay, you might be right." I pushed the guard in front of me aside and slipped away from another guard's hold. He stumbled, and I quickly moved past him. The bigger guard lunged at me, but I dodged him easily. I tried to control him with my hands without causing too much trouble. Then I saw the last guard coming at me. I stepped aside and in a quick motion held my weapon in a way that stopped Daniel in his tracks. The room grew silent as everyone froze. "Don't do this, Michael," Daniel said, raising his hands to calm the situation. "If you keep everyone back, I won't go to extreme measures, but I'm reaching my limit, Daniel. You've pushed hard, and now I'm ready to fight back." The tension in the air was thick. Finally, I said, "You can't keep me from my wife. I don't understand what you're trying to do, especially with Gutman here." "I'm here to help explain," a voice came from behind. I turned to see a tall man in a sharp suit. He didn't look like a regular doctor, but he clearly held a position of authority. "I'd like to hear what you have to say." "I'm Dr. Mayfair, your wife's psychiatrist, Mr. McCarthy. 2 nights ago, she was in a car accident that caused a head injury. Fortunately, her facial wounds are not expected to last, but she has a concussion and, quite surprisingly, amnesia." "Amnesia?" "Yes, a particular kind. She remembers who she is and many important moments, but she has forgotten the past 3 years, including the accident." "So she doesn't remember anything about you, your marriage, or your time together? She doesn't recall her father's passing. That part of her life is not accessible to her now. But she remembers him, I said, pointing to Gutman. Yes, Mr. Gutman is someone she recalls. McCarthy. She thought of him as someone she once cared for deeply. When she woke up, she called for him and became very upset until he could be found and brought to her. I watched her as she held his hand, as if he was anchoring her in the storm around her. Okay. She doesn't remember me. But we've been together longer than 3 years. You must have told her we've been married for 2 years. She doesn't recall our past. She saw your picture and was told what happened, but she didn't react well. You have to see that she woke up in a world different from the one she knew. She was so disturbed that I suggested waiting a few days, maybe a week, before letting you see her. This would help her adjust, as too much stress could make things worse. Could you please move that away from me? Daniel asked, pointing carefully. I know your history, Michael. You wouldn't have stayed away if I had said the doctor suggested it until she felt better. I thought waiting would help both of you adjust to what has happened. He smiled at me, understanding the situation. Maybe I misjudged things. I see you've faced a lot in your life. Michael, no matter how upset you are with me now, please know I did this because the doctor said she needed space to heal. I held my ground and turned back to Deirdre. Is this true, Deirdre? You don't remember me? And even the idea of me upsets you? Yes, Mr. McCarthy. They told me we were married and showed me pictures, but none of it feels familiar. I don't remember being with you, and I don't understand why I married you. You don't feel like someone I know. I can't even imagine your touch. She closed her eyes, her voice rising a bit. Please ask him to leave. Mayfair insisted. Get him out. Her blood pressure is going up. We can't risk anything that could harm her condition now. We should go, Daniel stated. Okay. But Deirdre, they told me you didn't remember me at all when you woke up. Is that true? She opened her eyes. No, I don't remember you at all. I passed the object to Daniel and allowed the security team to escort me out. Uniformed officers were waiting for me. Daniel signaled to them. This was just a small misunderstanding, gentlemen. There's no problem, and I'm sorry for calling you here. Once they left, Daniel said, I'm going to keep this, pointing to the object he held, even though I know you could come up with something else. You can leave now, but if you come back to the hospital, I will have to call the police for trespassing and for hurting my staff. Do not return to the Lancaster estate. You will be removed if you do. Your job at Lancaster Oil is over, and your pay stops now. I hope you find something new soon. I shook his hand. Thank you for not pressing charges and letting me leave. Please inform me if anything changes or if she remembers anything. You will be the first to know. I stepped out of the hospital with 3 security staff beside me. I glanced back once. Right now, things were not in my favor, but I had one advantage. I knew she wasn't telling the whole truth, which made me think the amnesia story wasn't accurate. I wished I didn't know that. I wished I could believe she had really forgotten everything and that my Deirdre might come back to me one day. But now I realized that was just a far-off hope. I would have to learn to face life alone. June 4th, 2004. The sign on the 3-story building 2 blocks north of the courthouse and 2 blocks east of the police station read, Bailey, Devon, Martin, and Wilkes, in large golden letters. I had heard jokes that the letters were made of real gold. Bailey and Wilkes were among the older and more successful law firms in Jacksonville. They had earned much of their money by working with Lancaster and his oil company for nearly 30 years. Mort Bailey was a close friend of Lancaster before he passed away, and he was also Deirdre's godfather. So I knew what I was getting into. I had received several emails and a friendly call from a woman at the firm inviting me to discuss Deirdre's situation in a casual and friendly environment. I had no doubt they were planning to talk with me in a way that would put me at a disadvantage, and I expected a tough conversation. Before I got out of my 2003 Jeep Liberty, I made some quick phone calls, and after the last one, I locked the doors. This part of Jacksonville had many lawyers, probably more than any place should. Even though it was busy with law enforcement and legal experts, there were also people involved in shady dealings. So it was never a good idea to walk around at night unless you were part of the law crowd, and you always locked your vehicle. I entered through the front door and took a deep breath. It smelled like money and old law books. A redhead in a dark red dress looked up and smiled at me. "Good afternoon, sir. Can I help you?" I couldn't help but smile back at her, even though she was on the other side. "I'm sure you could, but I'm here to see Mr. Bailey or someone from his team. I'm Michael McCarthy." Her smile faded for just a moment before she replied, "Oh, of course, Mr. McCarthy. They are waiting for you in the conference room on the 3rd floor." She pointed to someone next to me, and a tall figure emerged. He was well-dressed but had a strong, serious presence. I had seen someone like him in tough places around the world, but I never thought I would see him here in Jacksonville. "If you don't mind," he said, asking me to raise my arms. "And if I do mind? Well, that would be unfortunate. I'm responsible for security here, and I can't let you up until I check for any items that aren't allowed." "Really?" "Yes, really. There have been some problems in the city with clients causing issues. One lawyer faced a tough situation in a courthouse. Mr. Bailey and his team often handle matters that can create a lot of emotion. So, no one goes up without a check." I raised my arms and let him search me. He pulled out a few things, but after looking them over, he gave them back. I turned and let him check my back. "Follow me, sir." I followed him to an elevator with shiny brass doors. After he pressed the button, the doors opened about 10 seconds later, and I stepped inside. The ride took another 10 seconds, and then we stepped out into a hallway decorated with beautiful landscape pictures. Just walking down that hallway made me dream of running through fields of flowers on a sunny day. I couldn't imagine anyone staying angry after that peaceful walk. My guide stopped and pointed to another door. I opened it and walked in, then paused. The room was long, with a big oval table in the center that could seat 26 people. The wood was shiny from the overhead lights, but it wasn't the table that made me stop. 15 seats were filled. I noticed Bailey at the end of the table, with Billy Wilkes to his right and Deirdre to his left, looking down at the table. And there were 12 other people seated. If this was what Bailey and Wilkes called an informal and relaxed meeting, I could only imagine what a formal one would look like. Bailey gestured to the empty chair at the opposite end of the table. I pulled it back and sat down. "I feel like Custer at that gathering at Little Bighorn," I said. Bailey didn't smile. "I appreciate your humor, Mr. McCarthy, but this is a serious situation and we have an important meeting ahead." I was hopeful that our meeting outside of a formal setting would help us talk openly and realistically about how we might solve this issue in a way that works for everyone. "So, no one is writing things down and nothing will be on the record? Just between us?" I asked. He glanced at Deirdre, and it seemed like they shared a quiet understanding. She looked back at him and then at me, her expression lingering as she looked down again. "That's right, Mr. McCarthy. Speaking honestly has helped resolve many difficult situations," he replied. "Well, I'm here. Let's have this conversation," I said. "Before we start, Mr. Harper Stevens," he pointed to the tall man who had made sure I didn't have anything with me, "has informed us about some devices you brought. One looked like a voice recorder, and the other one was a phone that could also take recordings. To make sure we can talk freely, I would appreciate it if you could hand those over to one of our colleagues during this meeting. They're not recording anything, and you can check that. I didn't know we'd be discussing anything private today. My devices stay with me, or I will leave. Your choice. Your approach isn't what we had hoped for, but as you said, we won't be discussing anything sensitive today. At any rate, I appreciate your willingness to get straight to the point. Let's do that. You know that your wife is looking for a different path in your marriage?" I took a deep breath. I know she has shared her unhappiness before, but that doesn't mean she wants a separation. She looked me in the eye for a moment, then looked down again. Bailey reached out and took her hand. "She told you she wanted a divorce 2 months ago, again 1 month ago, and just last week. I'm not sure how much clearer she could have been." As she looked up again, I met her eyes, which once showed love for me. Inside, I held on to the hope that feeling was still there, even if I couldn't prove it. Her face, marked by the accident that had caused both her injuries and strain in our relationship, was familiar, but painful. "Deirdre," her voice wavered but stayed strong. "No, Michael. Whether you believe me or not, I never fell back in love with you. I didn't marry you for nothing. We spent 2 wonderful years together as husband and wife. You know we did. It doesn't matter if you don't want to accept it, it's true." "No," she said, her voice trembling for a moment. I know what you say and I know what others think. I even have seen our wedding photos, but none of that means anything to me. I didn't meet you. I didn't fall in love with you. I didn't spend those 2 years with you. For me, none of that ever happened. It doesn't feel real. Just because of memory loss doesn't change the truth. It doesn't erase our marriage. It changes feelings, she said. I don't know you. I never fell in love with you. When you contact me, it feels like a stranger reaching out. How can I want anything more when we've never really connected? This feels like a bad dream I can't escape. All I want is for you to leave so I can return to my real life. It seems clear, Mr. McCarthy, that whether you were married before or not, you are not married now, said Mr. Wilkes, the senior partner. You can take the boy out of Bluegrass, but you can't take Bluegrass out of the boy, even after many years. Maybe legally you are right, but in real life there is no marriage. I thought lawyers believed in the law. Bailey shook his head, a hint of a smile almost appearing. Lawyers don't just believe in the law, Mr. McCarthy. We believe in our clients. The law is just a tool we use to help them. It seems to me that if you cared about your client, you'd support her wish for counseling while she works with the best doctors to recover her memories. That is your idea of what Miss Lancaster needs, Bailey replied. She thinks her best option is to end this situation and go back to her old life. He folded his hands and looked at me across the long table. As a practical matter, Mr. McCarthy, this meeting is really to respect your position. Honestly, I can understand how you feel. If I were losing a partner who seemed to be my spouse but is now different, I would fight to keep them too. But the truth is you don't have much power here. Florida is a no-fault state. If Miss Lancaster wants a divorce, she will get one. You can challenge it, but you will likely lose. I'll still challenge it. Why? Because I love her. Because she is my wife. Because this memory loss is hard, and she could get her memories back after marrying someone else, and that would be heartbreaking. And because I don't like losing. Call me determined, but I want to keep what is mine. No matter what you say about Florida's laws, they only work that way if you give up and accept it. If I fight back, if I keep pushing against it, I can slow things down, and the longer I can delay, the more hope I have that her memories will return. Bailey passed a folder to the older lawyer sitting next to Deirdre. He brought it over to me. It was the report from Dr. Herbert Mayfair, the psychiatrist who had seen Deirdre after her accident and has been helping her since then. I don't know if you've looked at Dr. Mayfair's report. I have. Could you take another look, please? Just for a moment. Dr. Mayfair is a respected psychiatrist with 15 years of experience in Jacksonville. I opened the folder and looked through the pages. Toward the end, I saw this note. My investigation, along with the medical information from the accident until now, leads me to believe almost with certainty that Miss Lancaster has serious brain injuries. This alone could explain her memory loss over the last 3 years. After the car accident on March 17th, she was taken to St. Vincent's due to swelling in her brain from hitting the windshield of her car. This swelling and bleeding in the brain could have caused enough damage to affect her memory. While there are no signs of ongoing brain issues, the trauma could have led to memory loss that might last even after other problems have healed. There is also a chance that her physical injuries could be worsened by emotional factors. From what Miss Lancaster remembers and what others have said, it seems she had no connection with Mr. McCarthy before the last 3 years and felt pressured to marry him by her family. If this is true, she may not want to remember that time in her life. In summary, it is my professional view that trying to recover her lost memories is unlikely to work and might not be good for her mental health. Bailey said, "It's not likely that your wife will get her memories back, and maybe it's better that she doesn't. Any expert will tell you that memory loss is still not fully understood. Are you ready to risk your wife's happiness on a chance that Dr. Mayfair thinks is very slim?" I could have responded to Bailey's comments about Deirdre's feelings during our marriage, but I chose to keep the conversation moving. I picked up my phone and pressed one. As the people at the table watched me, I said into the phone, "It's time. Bring him up." Bailey asked, "What is happening, McCarthy?" But I interrupted him. "You didn't say I had to come alone to meet your team. I want someone else here." Bailey paused before telling his associate, "Go meet whoever it is. You can send him down, but it won't do any good. Nobody will take him seriously as a problem, and if your associate touches him, you could be taken to court. Bailey picked up a phone, dialed a number, and listened. After a moment, he frowned and said, "Send him up. He doesn't need an escort." Bailey turned to his associate and said, "It's fine, Stevens. Head downstairs and continue with your tasks." A short while after Stevens left, a tall man with dark hair entered. His sharp features and confident look gave him an air of authority. He evaluated the room carefully before sitting next to me. "Dr. Teller." "Mr. Bailey, gentlemen." Teller nodded to them. "Can I ask why you're here today, Dr. Teller? This isn't a hearing. Just a conversation between Mr. McCarthy and some of our staff about his issues with Miss Lancaster." Teller nodded at me and then turned back to Bailey. "I'm not sure why you'd need so many of your legal team for a simple talk," he replied. "However, Mr. McCarthy asked me to discuss Mrs. McCarthy's mental health. By the way, I find it odd that you call her Miss Lancaster. She is still married to Mr. McCarthy." "It's a choice, Dr. Teller. In her mind, Miss Lancaster believes she is single again. The steps to make that official are just formalities." "And," Bailey added, "we value your input, but I know you've seen Dr. Mayfair's report about Miss Lancaster's condition. You are a respected expert, just like Dr. Mayfair. Regardless of your view, we think we have enough proof for a judge to rule that Miss Lancaster believes her marriage is over." Teller thought for a moment, considering the situation. "You know my findings from my conversation with Mrs. McCarthy. My conclusion is that there is no evidence of ongoing trauma or brain issues that would explain any memory loss. Memory loss is a broad term that can describe many kinds of memory problems, so it needs clear details. While I found some signs of brain swelling in her hospital tests, which is expected after a serious accident, there is nothing to suggest the level that would lead to memory loss, especially if it's only for a specific time. Also, there are no signs of ongoing swelling or other stress." He flipped through Dr. Mayfair's report in front of me. "As for Dr. Mayfair's idea that there could be psychological reasons for the memory issues, such an explanation is often easy to suggest but hard to confirm. It can help explain memory loss when there isn't strong evidence available." "That's your view, Doctor," Wilkes replied. "While you are a respected psychiatrist, you're aware that opinions can differ widely." Leaning closer to me, Teller said softly, "There's a reason people often say, 'First, let's remove the lawyers.' Wilkes likes to challenge opposing witnesses, often pushing limits today more than he normally would." Teller looked back at Wilkes and said, "You're right. An opinion is just an opinion, not a fact. After talking to many people in cases from serious crimes to complicated situations, I firmly believe that Mrs. McCarthy isn't being honest." He stared at Deirdre until she finally looked at him. Usually she appeared calm like someone of high status, but I noticed something in her eyes that showed she was uneasy. Normally, I would keep my thoughts to myself, as sharing more might be seen as inappropriate. But since this is a more relaxed meeting to share our different opinions, I feel I must say, Mrs. McCarthy, that I truly doubt your memory loss related to your husband. I have serious concerns about what you say. And, he added before Wilkes could speak, while it may be hard to find a clear answer about the truth of her words, there is a method we could use that might hint at their truth." "No!" Bailey quickly took Deirdre's hand, her shout showing how urgent she felt. "Miss Lancaster has every right to refuse a lie detector test, Dr. Teller. McCarthy, let's focus on finding a solution that benefits everyone involved. We each have our interests to protect, and it would be best for you to engage in open discussion," he explained. I felt the tension in the room, but I was determined to stand firm. "Look, this isn't about bringing up old problems for no reason," I said, trying to show how serious this is. "There are misunderstandings that need to be cleared up for us to come to any agreement." Bailey nodded slightly, recognizing my point. "We know that honesty is essential here. We just need to tackle this in a positive way." "You called this meeting to help me too, remember? So let's talk about everything relevant without wasting any more time," I insisted. Bailey took a deep breath. "Okay, let's move on. We have a lot to discuss, and it's important that we do this without unnecessary distractions." As we continued talking, it became clear that staying calm and focused was crucial for all of us. Everyone wanted to move ahead, and we just needed to work through the details with respect. McCarthy, we'll give you space to share. If we can bring these issues into the open, it might save everyone a lot of trouble. Go ahead, Bailey said. I picked up my phone and pressed the number 3. Then I leaned back and waited, observing Deirdre's face, shifting my gaze from Bailey to Wilkes to the older attorney to a female lawyer. But they never looked at me. 5 minutes later, Earl Wilson walked in. He carried a briefcase and wore smart but casual clothes, gray dress pants, shiny black shoes, and a white shirt without a tie. He came over, sat down, and placed the briefcase on the table. This is Mr. Earl Wilson from Wilson Investigations. I could tell you about his experience, but I'm sure you've heard of him before. When I returned home and learned about Deirdre's accident, I was curious. She was brave and impulsive, but I never thought she would be careless while driving. I knew her dad had made sure she learned from the best defensive driving instructors. While he didn't worry about her having fun on the road, the daughter of someone wealthy always has to be careful about possible dangers. During our time together, I drove with her often. Honestly, she was a better driver than I am. As I spoke, she looked up at me, her eyes steady. She understood what I meant. I hired Mr. Wilson to investigate the accident and my wife's actions before and after it. I'll let him explain more. Wilson opened his briefcase and pulled out some papers and photos. I reviewed the accident report and the photos. It was tough to find them at first because they seemed to be misplaced, but I got them and made copies for you to see if you'd like. The first thing that caught my eye was a mismatch between the accident report and the damage shown in the pictures of the car and Mrs. McCarthy. The police said Mrs. McCarthy was driving alone when the accident happened on Interstate 95 as she approached Jacksonville from St. Augustine. It looked like she lost control of her car and hit a power pole. He tapped his fingers lightly on the table and glanced from Bailey to Wilkes, a small smile on his face. Bailey seemed nervous while Wilkes looked uncomfortable. They both appeared to sense something important was coming. If you look at the photos of the car's damage, the biggest impact was on the right front side, not the driver's side. That would be odd if she had hit the pole head-on. It seems like she tried to steer away from it. And most of the damage from the crash was on the right, where a passenger would be. I checked this information with 2 accident experts, and both agreed that Mrs. McCarthy could not have gotten her injuries while driving. She must have been in the passenger seat during the accident. I would say that just shows you spoke to some dubious experts, Bailey remarked. I'm not an expert in accident investigations, but I've seen enough cases to think of different ways a driver could get hurt and have those same injuries. And how is this relevant to our talk? Wilkes asked. I signaled for Wilson to keep going and looked at Deirdre. She looked trapped, as if there was no way out. I didn't say anything in the quiet room, but I felt she might have sensed my thoughts. You shouldn't have lied. If you had just come to me with the truth, we could have solved this easily. Wilson leaned forward on the table, his hands together. I found it strange that the police report didn't mention another person in Mrs. McCarthy's car, especially since it seemed certain there were 2 people involved. I spoke to some people and found a police official who told me the accident was initially reported as having 2 individuals involved, but after a few hours, it seemed like they forgot about the second person. Mrs. McCarthy went to Baptist Medical Center, and there was no record of anyone else arriving at that time. But when I checked other hospitals, I found that a Julian Gutman had been taken to University Medical Center around the same time. He had injuries that matched what happens when a driver hits an airbag. Wilson glanced from Bailey to Wilkes, barely hiding a smile. Typically, when someone is brought in after an accident, a police report is made. Yet, I couldn't find any report about Gutman's accident. The only explanation is if someone worked hard to make sure no reports were filed. To avoid problems for everyone involved would need a lot of influence. If this came to light, the officers involved could face serious trouble. Unless the orders came from him, which would lead to a major political scandal. Bailey and Wilkes were unusually quiet. And about Julian Gutman. He's the man who took advantage of a 17-year-old, leading to serious problems, and was paid by her father to keep his distance, I added. And after her father died, he came back to try and reconnect with her. I tried to catch her eye, but she looked away. It didn't really matter. There's not much left to figure out about who was driving her car, right? I said, trying to make it clear. Or what was going on? Or who used their power to make sure Julian was left out of it? "You're getting close to crossing a line," Wilkes cautioned. "You're not talking about public figures. If you think our company did something wrong, you could find yourself in a lot of trouble." I almost laughed. If I didn't trust Mr. Wilson's investigations, I might worry. But I know what he finds will be solid. Let's skip the legal threats for now. Mr. Wilson, please go on. "Yes, sir. I have more information about Mr. Gutman's injuries and more about Miss McCarthy's condition, things not noted in the official records. A nurse shared some observations regarding Mrs. McCarthy's injuries." Wilson paused, and no one spoke. Mrs. McCarthy had some injuries to her face, and while caring for her, the nurses noticed something unusual mixed with the blood. They took samples and tested them. The results were surprising. Deirdre, usually calm, turned a little red but stayed quiet. With a small smile, I asked, "Wilson, that does sound strange. Did the nurses have any thoughts on how that could have happened?" Without losing his calm, Wilson replied, "There was some guessing, but it didn't make much sense. Still, it was certainly odd. It seemed Gutman might have been involved in something inappropriate before the accident. I'll let you gentlemen decide on the opinions of the medical staff." He flipped through another document. "When I found out that they had been together that night, I started looking into their movements. Luckily, Mrs. McCarthy's security team uses GPS trackers in all her vehicles for safety. These aren't available for public viewing, but through some fortunate circumstances, I was able to access them. They showed that the two of them spent time at Neptune's Cave, a lounge on St. Augustine Beach." He smiled as he talked about the fortunate circumstances, which I knew must annoy Bailey and Wilkes. He was good at finding out things he shouldn't know, and even better at listening in without being noticed. I found witnesses who saw the two of them being quite friendly while they were there for several hours. They left the place together, clearly affected by what they had to drink, and reportedly returned to Jacksonville, where Mr. Gutman was staying in a condo bought for him by Mrs. McCarthy. "That's enough," Bailey said, and although he wasn't loud, he commanded attention in the room. "We've already talked about the fact that none of this can be proven, and it won't make any difference in a future divorce. I won't comment on whether Miss Lancaster had a relationship with Mr. Gutman. If she did, it wouldn't matter. Today, things like that carry little weight, especially when children aren't involved and support or alimony isn't a concern." He reached out and took Deirdre's hand in a kind gesture. "Again, there may be different opinions about her memory loss, but no matter what you think, it doesn't change her wish for a divorce. So even with all the other issues you've mentioned, what we really need to discuss is how we can end your marriage with the least amount of pain. I think you missed what I said. I don't want a divorce, and I will do everything I can to stop my wife from being with the person who caused her trouble when she was younger and then ran away. Even if I didn't care for her, I'd still fight this just to annoy them both." "Is it really worth all the money you're going to spend to bother your ex-wife?" "Money isn't an issue for me." Wilkes looked at me knowingly and said, "So you're planning to take advantage of your ex-wife's wealth? In a marriage that lasted only 2 years, and where the couple spent most of their time apart, there isn't usually much to settle." "No, I just want what's fair if Deirdre pushes for this divorce." "What do you think is fair?" Wilkes said, looking surprised. He knew better, but many good lawyers are good at acting. Some could have been stars if they had chosen a different path. "Yes, Mr. Wilkes and Mr. Bailey, what is fair? That's why we are here today. We can keep pretending, but I know what's at stake. I've always known. We can talk all day, but why not get to the point?" "If you know why we're here, then why the small talk?" Bailey asked, pointing at Wilson and Teller. "I wanted to see if she could look me in the eye, if she still had any feelings left, if the girl I once knew was still inside her. The answer is clear now." Both Teller and Wilson looked at me with curiosity. They had played their parts well, but they didn't know what I wanted in the end. "I feel like I came in here in the middle of a story," Wilson said. "I thought I understood the whole tale." "Would you mind?" I asked Bailey. He just shrugged. "This meeting isn't really about Deirdre wanting a divorce and me refusing her, or about the memory trouble she claims to have. I always thought the memory loss was made up, and I would have agreed to a divorce if she wanted one. But she wouldn't let me go now that things are like this." "How do you know that?" For once she looked at me without looking away. and for a moment I saw the woman I once knew. It was clear, Deirdre. When I came back, you acted surprised, as if you didn't recognize me. But you knew who I was. People must have shown you my picture, yet you said you had never met me in person. Your father told me, when he first asked me to look after you, that you had a big crush on me when you were younger. I didn't notice you back then, but you definitely noticed me. You may not remember much about our dating or our marriage, but you likely haven't forgotten someone you liked. And when it seemed like you'd completely forgotten me, I figured your memory loss wasn't real. So I just needed to do some digging and set up some listening devices in different places to find out what was going on. I looked back at the lawyers at the table. I got up and started to walk around. At first, I couldn't understand why Deirdre would pretend to forget everything. As you all mentioned, I couldn't stop her from wanting a divorce if she truly wanted one. Honestly, Deirdre, once I found out about your relationship with someone else, I would have let you leave. I walked up behind Deirdre, who tensed but stayed still. The younger lawyer began to stand, but Bailey waved him to stay seated. "It's fine, Matt." I placed my hands on her shoulders lightly. She wouldn't look at me. But when I realized you were with Gutman, everything made sense. I saw why you created the memory loss story. It was quite smart and showed some creativity. I knew you must have come up with it because Gutman wouldn't think of anything like this. I usually enjoy those mystery stories where the detective brings everyone together and explains the case, but I have to say, I still don't get it, Wilson said. I could tell some of Bailey's team were also puzzled. I really don't understand what's happening. Standing behind Deirdre and resting my hands on her shoulders felt unhelpful. I could feel the warmth of her, and memories of our past came back to me. It was getting harder to resist touching her. It's because you don't know everything, Wilson. A key detail is that Mr. Lancaster worried about the future of our marriage, so he included some agreements we both had to sign before we got married. To put it simply, for every year we were married, I would receive $1 million at the 10th year. We could decide to divorce or not after the 10th year, but the money would be saved for me. If the marriage ended because of Deirdre being unfaithful, I would get $10 million, and if we ended things before the 10th year for any reason other than my unfaithfulness, I would still receive $10 million. A heavy silence filled the room. Mentioning a $10 million divorce agreement had that effect, no matter where you were. Now, a $10 million penalty for divorce, which Lancaster likely made to protect his daughter from those looking to take advantage, might scare most people away, but not Deirdre. She has always lived a life of comfort, and likely sees $1 million as trivial when looking for happiness with Gutman. But Julian Gutman is different. Coming from a modest background, $1 million means a lot to him, 10 million. I doubt he can even grasp that number. The idea of me leaving with $10 million of what would have been his after marrying Deirdre must have frustrated him. No, this is all a plan to avoid giving me the $10 million that Lancaster intended for me. Deirdre must have gone against her father's wishes to keep him happy, and I can only imagine what else she has done to make that work. I leaned in a little, lowering my voice. That you went through all this for him is what hurts me the most. Without moving, she replied softly, "Let go of me, Michael. Just let go." I finally released my grip and stepped back. I needed to do that. Matt, or whatever his name was, looked uneasy in his seat. I wondered if he was involved with Deirdre too. But Lancaster had mentioned that when she was with Gutman, her focus was only on him. It was probably simple kindness. She was the kind of person you wanted to help. I was a bit taller than Matt, who was a lawyer, but I had learned to trust my gut feeling and sensed he might be tougher than he seemed. I took a step back, raising my hands in a sign of peace. "And how does Miss Lancaster forgetting everything change things?" Bailey asked, looking quite pleased. They clearly knew what I was aware of. Wilson leaned back in his chair and said, "Hey, I'm just an outsider, but even I can answer that. Lancaster was a devoted Catholic, just like you, Mr. Bailey. The McCarthy's wedding took place in a Catholic church with Monsignor Gerald Alcott officiating. I doubt the head of a Catholic diocese usually does private weddings, so he must be close to the Lancaster family. I'm not Catholic, but I've seen some divorce cases in Catholic marriages. The church doesn't encourage divorce, but there are exceptions. They can grant annulments for various reasons. While they're not easy to get, they do happen. I would think that if Mrs. McCarthy explained her situation to the bishop, A brief marriage with no children, ending with her losing all memories from the past 3 years. Her request would at least be looked at. Maybe, Bailey agreed, still smiling, which made me uneasy. But gentlemen, even if you think my respected firm would use such tricky methods, what about the civil courts? Mr. McCarthy could argue his case there, and the teachings of the church didn't matter in that place. I noticed Bailey's smile, but felt uneasy about it. It seemed like Bailey wasn't used to losing, and I doubted he would say that his firm would do the right thing and give me what Lancaster had wanted me to have if Gutman came back into her life. Why do I get the feeling that you're not really concerned about my plans? I asked. You're sharp, Wilkes replied to his partner. Smart, too. Orion mentioned he was more clever than he looked. He seemed strong, but had the ability to grow Oil Inc. even more in the future. Turns out he was right. Did you know this was a major investigation, Mr. McCarthy? A major investigation? I believe you know what I mean. We wanted to understand what you were aware of, what you had done, and what you might do next. It seemed that you would share more in a casual setting. We learned what we needed to know. Now that we don't need to keep investigating, we can have a real talk. So, let's talk. He motioned for Teller and Wilson to leave, saying, You guys won't be needed anymore. McCarthy, why don't you let them go? I don't think so. He stood up from his chair and walked over to the table, leaning casually against it. Okay, let's summarize. You think your wife is pretending to have forgetfulness after a bad car accident. You have a psychiatrist who agrees with you. We believe Miss Lancaster suffered genuine brain damage in a terrible event. No one, in our view, would go through such pain just to fake something, especially something she didn't need to fake. He pointed to Wilson. You hired a private investigator who found information that questions Miss Lancaster's version of the accident, but you can't prove much about what happened or how the local sheriff's department acted. You can show that she was in touch with Mr. Gutman while still married to you. But, putting feelings aside, legally, so what? Her relationship with Mr. Gutman is and was completely valid. People's feelings can change often. She's clearly not looking to get back together with you. She will do everything she can, and so will we, to ensure that you don't get the $10 million stated in the marriage agreement. He rubbed his bald head. Does that pretty much cover things? Yeah, mostly. Except you skipped over the main point, which is that I will receive that $10 million no matter what legal tricks you're planning to use against the prenuptial agreement. You'll fail. Bailey got up and approached me closely. For a man in his 60s, he was in pretty good shape. He looked back at his team and signaled for an older woman with dark hair who brought him a paper. Thank you, Marge. As she walked away, it was clear there was a history between them beyond just work. It showed that connections can last even into later years of life. He handed me the paper. As you'll see, this is an agreement to give up any claim to the $10 million in exchange for an immediate $250,000 payment. You can sign it now, Mr. McCarthy, and get the $250,000 today. Miss Lancaster can finalize her divorce within the month, and you both can go your separate ways. I couldn't help but smile. You really think I'm going to agree to that? Why would I do it? Because you don't have many choices. He moved to the center of the room, gesturing broadly. You joked at the start of this meeting about how you see yourself compared to General Custer at the Battle of the Little Big Horn. You were right. That is your situation. You are at a disadvantage and you aren't ready for the legal challenges coming your way. I know you feel you have the moral high ground, but that shows a lack of understanding. Courtroom results often favor the stronger side. Compared to Miss Lancaster, you are outmatched. You're really going to hurt my feelings if you keep this up. This is serious. We found out through legal means that your financial situation shows around $35,000 in your bank account and assets. You had nearly $75,000, but your costs for Dr. Teller's services are high, and Mr. Wilson has taken a large cut for his fees. Miss Lancaster, with her wealth and ownership of Oil Inc. CC, is valued at around $150 million. You don't have a lawyer. Meanwhile, there are at least 50 people working on Miss Lancaster's case. Though you have one investigator, we have 10 looking into your life and marriage. Being married to Miss Lancaster might lead you to think you could access some of her resources, but that's not true. We've successfully blocked any access to her funds, and any potential support from a judge is currently frozen until the case is finished. This process will take a long time. We will work hard on this case to seek annulment and end your marriage due to differences and lack of compatibility. The divorce will be complicated with many legal and personal issues, making it take a long time to sort out. Soon enough, you'll run out of money for investigators, experts, and any good legal help. You're going to face big losses, money, personal life, and maybe even legal trouble. I can't wait to see what awful things I've done to my innocent wife. I couldn't sit still. I moved around Bailey, and as Matt tried to stand up to stop me, I pushed him back down. I took the back of Deirdre's chair and turned her to look at me. I guess I didn't really know you, Deirdre. I thought you'd stand by me, but you're willing to turn against me for that $10 million. You would give up so much for someone who has hurt you so much. It's good your father isn't here. He'd be sad to see your choices. Just sign the papers, Michael. We're finished. Take the $250,000 and go on with your life. The problem, Michael, is that you've been influenced by TV shows about court cases, Wilkes said as he walked over to me. The courtroom isn't just about arguments. It's a complicated fight. While we don't see sword fights anymore, we still face battles, but now with words, papers, and proof. But it's still a fight, Bailey chimed in. Right or wrong won't matter. We can flood you with motions and loads of legal papers. We will wear you down. Someone like you won't know how to defend against all that. We will overwhelm you. Bailey stood behind Deirdre, resting his hands on her shoulders, where mine had just been. And that's not even the worst part, Michael. We won't play fair. This is a tough battle. Deirdre has accused you of hurting her on the very first night you were together. You took away her strength, and when she tried to oppose you, you caused her harm. We have statements from some of her friends who tried to help when they noticed what was going on. They ended up hurt. How could she defend herself against such aggression? Even after that first time, you kept using fear to control her, threatening her reputation. McCarthy, I suggest you think about your choices carefully. You have a chance to protect yourself from more trouble. He looked at the paper and then around the room at the serious faces. The air was thick with tension. And I promise you, Michael, the results of this could be more than just losing money, Wilkes added, his voice firm. Deirdre's eyes showed a mix of strength and hurt, showing how serious things were. Signing this doesn't mean you're accepting what's been said about you. It just means you're choosing a different path, one that could help you rebuild your life, Teller said softly. For a moment, the weight of his choices felt heavy as he thought about what lay ahead. Bailey and Wilkes needed to be cautious because lawyers could end up in serious trouble for such actions. Bailey smiled, seeming to find the thought of prison funny. Your friends aren't lawyers, Michael. Take advice from someone who is a lawyer with many years of experience. Not signing this will be a big mistake. I looked at the legal team he had gathered against me. They seemed powerful and ready to win, which made my nerves rise. So I was a bit surprised that I was smiling. Wilkes and Bailey exchanged worried looks, trying to understand my mood. Deirdre watched me closely, and I could tell she noticed something wasn't right. She didn't know the whole story, but she sensed that something significant was about to happen. She shifted nervously in her chair. Mr. Bailey, Mr. Wilkes, you are right. My friends are not lawyers, and I'm not a lawyer either. I don't have a lawyer helping me, but I do have someone helping me, kind of. He's working for free, which is great, but he knows you and is good at his job. Let me call him. I took out my cell phone and dialed #9. No words were needed. 30 seconds later, phones on several desks started ringing. Bailey and Wilkes got up from their chairs, looking alarmed. They heard a message repeated, Mr. Bailey, Mr. Wilkes, the police are downstairs. They are telling everyone to stay put. Mr. Stevens has been arrested. They are coming up. Bailey and Wilkes told their staff to settle down and hang up the phones. Bailey looked worried. I don't know what kind of game you're playing, McCarthy, but it's dangerous. I will deal with whatever lawyer you have coming here. I have supported Sheriff Knight for a long time. When I tell him about his officers' actions, there will be serious results. I then heard footsteps approaching down the hall. The door opened, and officers from the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office entered, followed by Mr. Harper Stevens, who had his hands restrained behind him, along with another tall officer. The last to enter was a short man who blended in, not drawing any attention while others focused on the uniformed officers. Most people were watching the deputies, but Bailey, Wilkes, the older lawyer named Matt, and all the other lawyers were focused on the quiet civilian man. He didn't look like someone who would scare anyone. His clothes looked nice, but the white shirt was tight and had gaps between the buttons. His brown hair and dark stubble gave him a messy look, as if he hadn't had time to clean up. He was what any Irish person would see as a child of the Black Irish. His thick black stubble set him apart. His name was William Maitland, the second prosecutor in the state attorney's office for the 3rd Judicial Circuit. And he was my secret advantage. "Maitland!" Bailey said in surprise. "What's happening here?" "Hello, Mort Wilkes. I could ask you the same thing." "What do you mean?" "I've never seen so many lawyers in one room unless it's a bar meeting with snacks. You almost didn't have enough staff downstairs to process everything. I had to leave a few officers there just to keep order." "Maitland, this is serious." "You're right, Mort. This is a serious situation." "A serious situation?" Wilkes repeated. "Come on, Wilkes. You need to be more involved to make this exciting. Just echoing my words won't help. You've always been one to seek attention, but this time it seems like you're in over your head." Maitland smiled as if he knew something important that no one else did. "Oh, Mort, I always thought you liked me." Bailey reached for the phone on the table. "Give me your boss's number, Maitland. If you're still with the state attorney's office tomorrow, I'd be shocked." "Mr. Edwards is in Tallahassee today and is busy, but I have his number, and you might want to call him." Bailey dialed the number. After a moment, he pressed a button and a voice came through. "I want this on speaker so everyone can hear." "Hello, I only have a minute. I'm about to go into a meeting." "Dallas, this is Mort Bailey." "Oh, hey, Mort. I hope this can wait until later. We need to talk now. Do you know what Maitland is doing in my office?" "No, but I know why he's there. He mentioned he got some concerning information about your firm. He was going to come to your office to clear things up." "He came into my office with police, secured my staff, and called this a raid. Since when do your people raid law offices?" "Maitland is a responsible person. He wouldn't be there if he didn't think there was a reason." "He walked into my office with police during an important meeting. I didn't expect this behavior from your team. I have supported your office since you first ran. I have praised your work among the bar. I have supported your campaigns over the years without asking for anything in return. I deserve better than this. You've been a friend and supporter, and I appreciate that, but I couldn't ignore what Maitland told me. I'm sure you'll be able to clarify things. Please work with Maitland. He will help you. Now they're calling me back in. I believe everything will work out, and we can have lunch next week when I'm back in town." A loud click broke the silence in the room. "Mort, it looks like your friend just put you in a tough spot, and I'm here to talk about it." Bailey and Wilkes slowly made their way back to their seats, looking a bit unsure. Bailey scanned the officers in the room. "You have the upper hand right now, Maitland, but that might change. Dallas Edwards will regret what he's done, and you may start to regret your choices even sooner. I have contacts in the bar, and the association in Tallahassee won't accept this behavior. Having Edwards on your side won't help you here. I'm ready to file complaints against you for misconduct, and you'd be lucky if that's all that happens. Maybe. But for now, let's discuss more urgent issues." He pulled up a chair next to Teller and sat down. He pointed at me. "Mr. McCarthy recently came to me with serious claims. He mentioned fraud with plans to steal $10 million, encouraging false testimonies and submitting fake legal papers, among other things. Mr. McCarthy, please share your recording." I couldn't help but smile slightly as I pressed play, even though it felt a bit silly. I looked at Wilson, but he didn't show any expression. It helps to have someone with experience on your side in a situation like this. "Deirdre, there's no need to worry. I know this is tough for you. You were married to him for 2 years, so it's normal to feel some guilt. But you're doing a good job. Stick to your story that you don't remember those 3 years. Dr. Fairfax has given a report backing you up and won't change it. We've made sure that the accident report concerning Gutman isn't a problem anymore, so there's nothing official linking him to it." "I can't help it, Uncle Mort. I feel terrible. It's hard enough to do this just to keep Michael from getting the $10 million. I've asked Julian to drop it. We don't need it, but he won't listen." Honestly, I think it's more about him disliking Michael because I'm married to him than the money. He just wants to make things hard for Michael. And even worse, I don't want to do the things you're planning. Accusing Michael falsely, stirring up trouble with my friends, making threats. It's not true, and you know that. It's already tough enough, but I'm not sending him to jail. We won't need to go that far. I don't intend to. But we had to prepare the accusations and have witnesses who will support the case and talk if needed. But it won't come to that. The reason we're doing this is to avoid court. Michael isn't foolish. When he sees the pressure we could apply, he'll agree to take $250,000 and walk away. I promise you, he'll give up. I turned off the recorder. That was a solid plan, Mort. It could have worked, Maitland said. But he's really stubborn and didn't give in. Bailey looked at the recorder on the table like it was someone he didn't want there. Are you serious, Maitland? I might not agree with all your methods, but I never thought you would be careless. An illegal recording of a private conversation? You're relying on that? It's against the law and it can't be used in court. I understand the law well, Mort. You're right. I can't use that recording in court. But remember Inciarano from 1985? Someone breaking the law doesn't have the same right to privacy. And you were definitely involved in things that are not above board when that conversation happened. Even if we can't use it as proof in court, we might find a way around it. Another thing about illegal recordings, if we aren't the ones doing them, is that they can help us find info that can be used legally. Maitland took out his phone and pressed a button. Bring in the doctor and the boyfriend. Both Bailey and Wilkes' eyes grew wide as Maitland's words settled in. Deirdre looked surprised. I knew she hadn't expected it to go this far. I wondered how much Bailey had to convince her to be here today. She had been trying to keep her distance from me since starting her role. A moment later, the door opened, and a tall, smart-looking man in a slightly rumpled suit, Dr. Mayfair, walked in, followed by a younger man in casual shorts and a t-shirt. A uniformed officer peeked inside, but Maitland waved him off. Maitland motioned for Dr. Mayfair to sit at the table, which was getting more crowded. Before he could point out where Gutman should go, my wife's companion had nearly bumped into one of the secretaries to take a seat next to Deirdre. They shared a look, and then he leaned in closer. I expected a supportive gesture, but instead, he surprised me with something entirely different. Some people glanced their way, but most looked away. Eventually, he broke the moment, leaving my wife looking a bit shaken. He looked me in the eyes and smiled, sending a clear message. My wife had caught his attention, and he made that clear. All right, he was quite good-looking, maybe even too good-looking. He had long hair and wore a noticeable diamond stud in his left ear. A few female attorneys and secretaries couldn't help but stare. If I was lucky, I might get a chance to ease the tension that had built up. Good afternoon, Dr. Mayfair, Maitland said. Having a bit of trouble with your outfit today? Mayfair, with his stylish long hair and dark glasses, looked polished but resembled an older version of the charming doctors from TV shows. To many, he appeared to be the friendly uncle you could trust. But today, he looked less put together, like that relative who always shows up at family events looking messy, the one who asks for money but hardly pays it back. He definitely felt like the least liked person in the room. On the outside, he tried to look professional, but inside he seemed worried. His eyes darted nervously between Wilkes and Bailey. Mr. Bailey, Mr. Wilkes, I'm sorry, I didn't have a choice. They said I was going to jail. I had to talk. I had to tell them. I don't care what stories you told them, Mayfair, Bailey replied. We both know you gave an honest report without any pressure. Definitely without money from us. Whatever tricks Maitland used to scare you, if he made you sign something misleading, you're in serious trouble. The first thing any shady lawyer will tell you is that when you're in trouble, it's time to make up stories, Maitland said. And you do that very well. I'd almost think you were mixed up in something wrong. And pretending to be a nice guy? I always thought of myself as a good person. Keep playing your games, Maitland. You've managed to get one bad recording and one pressured statement. That's all you really have. I see it differently, but I guess I'm just in favor of the truth. Part of the issue you're facing is that you're a civil lawyer. You've never dealt with criminal law. From where I stand, holding you responsible won't be very hard. We can use the tape to persuade reluctant witnesses by showing them their own interests. The documents Dr. Mayfair signed are enough for us to get permission to search this office, look over all the files and call records, and investigate the police and medical staff involved. Bailey stood up, taking a moment to collect himself. You're too used to working with dishonest people, Maitland. If you don't have anything better, take your officers and leave, and please remove the handcuffs from Mr. Harper Stevens. Maitland turned to an officer nearby. Stu, if Mr. Bailey doesn't quiet down and sit down, please help him. Once Bailey sat back down, Maitland walked over to the silver-haired attorney, Matt. Mr. Henry, why don't you step over here with me for a moment? Henry and Bailey shared a look, and then Henry stood and followed Maitland to the far side of the room, still close enough to hear everything. Matt, I make it a point to know the attorneys in my area, even the civil ones. I've heard good things about you. You're smart, hardworking, and a skilled attorney. I can see why Morton Wilkes decided to hire you. They don't just accept anyone here. Henry smiled a little, surprised by Maitland's presence. Are you about to give me some advice I didn't ask for? I'm here to assist you, Matt. I want to protect you from a tough situation. Why this sudden concern, Mr. Maitland? I don't know how much you know about the plan to cheat Mr. McCarthy out of $10 million that has been going on here. But I see you're smart enough to have noticed something. You're important to this firm, and it seems the others aren't ready to speak up. They have their own lives to worry about, with homes and families. The secretaries and helpers are too scared to get caught up in any trouble. But if you speak out, everything could change. You'd be seen as a key person, and everyone knows it. If you decide to help us, you won't face any charges, and your reputation will stay clean. You'd be seen as a brave person who helped reveal a dishonest firm. True, local job options may be limited, but my boss knows many people in the legal world and has a good reputation. With his support, you'd likely find organizations that appreciate your honesty. Henry didn't look to his colleagues for support. Thank you for your offer, but I think the case against Mr. Bailey and Wilkes is wrong. I don't know anything about bad actions in this firm, so I can't help. Maitland ran his hand through his thinning hair and stared at the floor for a moment. Without looking up, he spoke so quietly that everyone had to lean in to hear him. I value loyalty and honesty. I admire anyone who does the right thing when it matters, but above all, I really value loyalty, even if it's sometimes misplaced. He bit his lip and looked thoughtful. I could tell he was a bit nervous, but he was trying to share something important. And so I respect you, Matt. But before you decide, please think for just a moment. You know deep down that Bailey and Wilkes and maybe the other partners are in serious trouble. They might act tough, but when the evidence comes out, people will change sides. They always do. Bailey and Wilkes are in their 60s. Most of Wilkes's children are grown. For white-collar crimes like stealing $10 million, they usually won't face more than 5 years. They have enough money saved to live comfortably, even if they stop working. Deirdre Lancaster and her boyfriend might not go to jail, though I will try my best to make that happen because they are responsible for this. Even if they spend some time in a nice place, she will still have $150 million when they get out, and this will just be a small bump on their road. But you, Matt, this could be very serious for you. You're 32, unmarried, and have maybe $500,000. Legal fees will take a big chunk of that. You might be blamed along with the others, as they will likely try to share the blame. You could lose your job as a lawyer. No good firm, and probably not even smaller ones, will hire someone found guilty of fraud and theft. He stepped back from Henry. I looked around the room. No one was talking, and everyone was watching the two of them. Maitland looked at Henry closely. You're a young man, Matt. Maitland chuckled at the look on Henry's face. Relax, Matt. I'm not suggesting anything unusual. I'm just recognizing that you have a bright future ahead. I don't know anything about your personal life, but I assume you are interested in relationships. It's likely that one day you'll meet someone special and maybe start a family. If you're like most men, you'll want the best for your partner and children. That's usually how it goes. As a talented lawyer, you could provide your family with a good life filled with chances to travel and learn. But if you lose your job, it will be much harder to give them the life you want. If you stay loyal to your bosses, you're not just wasting your own life. You're putting your family's future at risk. You're giving up everything for people who will leave without facing real consequences. Maitland stepped closer and placed a hand on Henry's shoulder. For the first time, it was clear how short Maitland was. Just think about this. It's one of the most important choices you'll make in your life, and it will affect your future, Matt. Consider it well. The two men stood still for a moment before Henry stepped back, shaking his head as if he was trying to clear his mind. I've heard things about you, Maitland. I always knew you were skilled. You're impressive. But I feel like you've wasted your talents on me. I still don't know much about fraud or what's going on. He turned away from Maitland and went back to his seat. Maitland shook his head briefly before going back to where Bailey was sitting. I don't know how much you're paying him, Mort, but you should pay him more. He looked around the table. I know everyone heard that conversation. The same deal applies. Step forward, and you can leave without any charges or problems. But this chance won't last forever. If you wait too long, it will be gone. Henry, that includes you. This offer won't be around for long. Some other witnesses might not be as helpful, but a few will do. Don't wait too long. I glanced around the table. I wasn't a lawyer or an expert in questioning, but I'd seen enough serious talks around the world to understand people a bit. They looked nervous, figuring out their best choices. I didn't think anyone in this room would speak up right away, but I expected that soon someone would reach out to Maitland's office. Gutman held Deirdre's hand tightly and had stopped smiling at me. He seemed to be thinking about the choices ahead. We seemed to be on the same page. He looked up as I met his eyes, and I raised an eyebrow at him. Only Deirdre's grip kept him in his seat. There was clear tension, but he stayed quiet. I shifted my focus to Bailey and Wilkes. Neither seemed to crack under the pressure. Today was not going as they had planned, and it wasn't going the way I had hoped either. Maitland appeared to make a choice. He signaled to the officer named Stu and said, All right, Mort, if you're not even open to discussing a deal, let's move on. Turn around and put your hands behind you. Stu, please secure him. After that, do the same with Wilkes. You're making a mistake, Maitland. You're handling this poorly when this is all you have. It's sad to see a career end like this, and yours will end today. I've informed the media. A good walk for the cameras is exactly what the local news loves. Finally, Bailey turned around and placed his hands behind him. You really don't know what you're doing, Maitland. You always manage to make things worse. Maitland looked down for a moment, then up at me and finally at Bailey. That's disappointing. Bailey was just as confused as everyone else, except for me and Maitland. You've let me down, Mort. I really thought you'd be asking for mercy, but you're stubborn, which makes my job harder. Maitland took a seat at the table on my side. Stu, everyone else can wait downstairs. Grab some coffee or something. We may still need to sort out some things. Grove, you can take Mr. Reeves downstairs, and if he calms down, you can take off his restraints, too. What is happening here? Before Maitland could respond, Harper Stevens pushed his hands further back. Mr. Bailey, can I please handle this? Some people think they are above everyone else. One trained person can manage several at once, any time. Grove turned to Maitland. Maitland, please give me a moment. The way some people behave is frustrating, I said. The only reason you're talking like this is because I'm tied up. Say that when I'm free to move, Grove responded. Let's not make this worse right now, Officer Grove. This isn't the time, I replied. The big officer looked at Maitland. I agreed to help you, Mr. Maitland, because you've supported me in the past, but this situation is getting out of hand. Let's keep things calm, Bailey, Maitland said. Why should I listen to you, Maitland? You're acting recklessly and you're pushing your authority too far. I don't understand what you're trying to do here, Bailey snapped back. It'll make sense soon enough. But if these two start fighting, someone's going to get hurt. If your officer attacks mine, I'll have no choice but to act, and no one wants that. And if my officer fights back, it won't end well either, Maitland explained. The men stared each other down. Finally, Harper Stevens broke the silence. There are stairs out back. If we go down that way, someone could have an accident. No serious injuries, no deliberate harm. First one down or knocked out, it's over. Agreed? Maitland asked. Let's get out of here. Is that okay with you? I said. We don't need your permission to leave, one of the men replied, and they both walked out talking like old friends. For a moment, everyone stood still, listening for any sound from outside. But there was only silence. Maitland, I ask again, what's going on here? Bailey demanded. It was all a bluff. You had your show, I had mine. Neither worked well, Maitland said with a shrug. I knew this was ridiculous. Your career is finished, Bailey scoffed. Not quite, Maitland replied. He turned to me. McCarthy, don't go through with this. I understand why you're doing it, but it's not worth it. We had spoken before. I hadn't been able to explain it then, and I knew I couldn't now. Maitland was a smart man, but he hadn't been through what I had. He would never truly understand. You're the luckiest person I know, Mort, Maitland said. You too, Wilkes. It was obvious they didn't understand what he meant. You might escape serious consequences all because the man you were trying to cheat still cares about his wife. Deirdre's glance struck me deeply, but Gutman's smug smile made me clench my fists as I fought the urge to confront him. So this is all just a bluff? You've got nothing? Wilkes asked. Don't celebrate just yet. We have Dr. Fairfax's statement and the documents to back it up. We also have court orders to stop any destruction of evidence. We'll have people on your staff testify. I've got everything I need to build a solid case. Convictions won't be hard to get. He turned and looked directly at me. The real problem here, Mr. McCarthy, is you. McCarthy looked at me with firmness, but I could see a bit of regret in his eyes. Before coming here, I'd learned some things about him. He had a good background, and his plain look made people overlook him. He wasn't someone to dismiss easily. I had been careful in my dealings with him, using him for my goals to ensure he wouldn't take advantage of me. While he had been on my side, he didn't seem happy with me right now. You've really messed things up, McCarthy. Why didn't you just report what was happening at this company and let the law handle it? They would have faced severe consequences, and you could have gotten justice for the betrayal, ultimately ending up with a good amount of money. Instead, he took the tape recorder from me and showed it to the others at the table. The recording played here today is just a copy. The copies we have aren't the original. McCarthy won't give us the original, which means any skilled defense lawyer will raise questions about it. Because of this, we can't use it in court, and it's likely Dr. Fairfax's testimony won't hold up, especially if he doesn't want to keep cooperating. Not only is the wiretap questionable, but we also can't prove it hasn't been changed in some way. Plus, we have a copy of an email he sent to a friend abroad a month ago. Maitland held up a piece of paper, though no one on the other side could read it. He began to read aloud. Griff, I wish I was with you in China right now. My life has turned upside down. I know that Deirdre is not being honest with me about someone from her past. She's made up a story to avoid talking to me and seems focused on ending our marriage. Most days I feel a mix of anger and sadness. But sometimes I think our marriage might have been doomed from the start. I wonder if I played a part in that. I've never told anyone this, but that night I helped her after a tough incident. I took her to a safe spot so we could talk and make sure she was okay. Yet in that moment I felt drawn to her. It made me question my feelings, and I started to sense a connection I didn't expect. Now, as we try to work on our marriage, I can't shake what happened at the beginning. I find myself wondering if a relationship built on mistakes and dishonesty can really thrive. Maitland looked at the paper, shook his head, and tossed it on the table. Now, I don't know if this message is true. Either McCarthy is confessing to serious issues, or he is trying to present himself in a very bad light. Presenting himself in a bad light? Bailey shouted, standing up quickly. Your so-called victim is lying, and you plan to use him against us? Do you see how confusing that sounds? I asked. It's not confusing, Maitland replied, glancing between me and Deirdre. It's sad. He told me his plan when he came to see me. He wanted to upset his wife and her lawyers enough that they would just give him $10 million so he could leave. But he didn't want to go too far. That's why he didn't want to give us the original tape. And he sent us an email. Normally I would have gone after him and you, Bailey, and everyone else involved, but he played his cards well. The wiretap will be thrown out, but it's too linked to the case. Even if it gets excluded, it will still hang around the trial. News will get out. The defense lawyers will question him about illegal recording. If I don't do something, it will lead to bigger trouble for me. The claim has no direct link to this case, and if I don't believe it, I don't have to take action. But Mrs. McCarthy is already ready to say he harmed her. If you think he did, that jeopardizes the marriage and their agreement. Regardless of how the case ends, advocacy groups will be loud. The governor will need to appoint another prosecutor. With a written confession, he could face serious problems. So even if I have doubts, I may need to press charges that I think are false, just to protect my job. I believe I do my job well, and I can't do that if I'm under attack for standing by someone accused of wrongdoing. He looked at one of the staff and said, "Could someone please get me black coffee?" Wilkes nodded, and a young woman stepped out of the room. I don't want to send an innocent man to face harsh punishment, even if I think he might walk away with $10 million. But I also don't want you all, he gestured toward Bailey and the other legal team, to gain from any dishonest actions or serious crimes. He walked back to me and turned to Bailey. Just to talk hypothetically, Bailey, if McCarthy signs papers giving up any claim to that $10 million and agrees to a divorce, will you still go after the other charges, or let him leave? Those charges will drop. He can go with $250,000 since Miss Lancaster has agreed to that. Maitland stood behind Deirdre. You mentioned that your husband harmed you. He has admitted to it formally. Are you willing to let this go, or once he signs, will you pass the information to others to pursue him? She simply shook her head, but Bailey said, She'll let him go. The last thing she wants is to relive painful memories. At that moment, the secretary returned with a blue ceramic coffee cup. Maitland took the drink quickly and handed it back to her. He walked to the front of the room and then paced to the back, lost in thought. I've done things in this job that I didn't want to do, things I didn't like but had to happen. People think I'm hard and harsh. Some even think I like making others feel uneasy. Sometimes that's true, but only when it's deserved. This situation, Mort can be tough, but I understand his actions. Mort, you and Viviana have no children, right? After 40 years of marriage, you were Deirdre's godparents. You've spent a lot of time with her, especially after Orion passed. I believe you cared for her, not for money. And you, Deirdre, your main mistake is being careless with who you trust. And you, McCarthy, you've made some poor choices. I don't want to do this, but I can't ignore it. I might regret this later. He took out his phone and called someone. Hi, can I talk to Mr. Edwards? It's urgent. Dallas, it's me. Yes, I know he's your friend, but we can't back down. No, we didn't get a break. There's an 85 to 90% chance of a conviction, and this is a big case. There are dishonest lawyers, rich families, and fraud. It has it all. He paused, listening, then handed the phone to Bailey. He wants to talk to you. Bailey listened for a couple of minutes before answering. Are you serious? He handed back the phone to Maitland. Just pay the money, Mort. It's only $10 million. Let's end this before it gets worse. Bailey leaned over and whispered to Deirdre. Gutman tried to speak up. Stay quiet. This is your fault. If you hadn't been so greedy, none of this would have happened. But they've already threatened us, Deirdre said, glancing at me before looking away. Nothing has changed. Why are you giving up now? Everything has changed, Deirdre. Edwards is coming for us. He won't stop. I don't want you to go through the trouble ahead. Just give McCarthy the money. Your boyfriend will move on. She finally looked me in the eyes, holding my gaze firmly. All right, Michael. You win. Take your $10 million and go. Let me be with the man I love, and that isn't you. Bailey signaled to Wilkes, who stood up and left the room. You'll have the money by tomorrow. I want it in half an hour. Cashier's check. $10 million in half an hour? I believe Hunt Bank can prepare a $10 million check that fast. A secretary followed Wilkes out of the room. Maitland sat next to me and took out his phone. Our officers are leaving. Tobe continued. Hey, audience. If you like this video and want to keep up with more thrilling stories, make sure to subscribe to Prince Cheating Tales and hit the notification bell. You don't want to miss out on our upcoming adventures. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next wonderful story.